The elders of Umuchi said the dead slept, but this grave did not sleep. It listened. No one noticed the boy at first. He was too small for the weight he carried, too quiet for a place that swallowed sound. He moved carefully through the cemetery at the edge of Umuchi Kingdom, where ancient Iroko trees laid inward like old men whispering secrets meant only for the dead. Their roots clawed through the earth, twisting around forgotten bones and buried lies. The evening wind moved gently, slow and deliberate, like a mourner afraid of disturbing grief, yet the air felt heavy, unnatural, as though the land itself was holding its breath. The boy knelt before a grave that held nobody. The mound was fresh, though the name carved into the stone had been there for 6 long seasons of rain. Time had passed, but the lie had not softened. With small, trembling fingers, the boy traced the letters carved into the stone. He moved slowly, reverently, as though touching an open wound that had never been allowed to heal. "Mama," he whispered, his voice barely louder than breath, but steady with purpose. "I came again." He paused and glanced around, making sure no one was watching. Adults did not like children speaking to the dead. They said it invited questions that could not be answered. "My teacher says spirits hear better at dusk," he continued quietly, "so I came before night." The wind stirred, but the grave remained silent. "Mama," the boy whispered again, his voice cracking just slightly. "They said you died here, but you are still breathing where the sun rises." He lowered his head, listening. "When I ask why they lied, you cry," he said softly. "When I ask who made them lie, you tell me to forgive them." The earth did not answer, but behind him, footsteps stopped. A tall figure stood frozen at the edge of the graves, where shadows gathered thickest and light struggled to follow. Once, his arrival had been announced by drums. Once, warriors had cleared paths for him. Once, his name alone had bent spines and opened the gates. Now, Prince Obinna stood unnoticed among the dead. Grief had stripped him of youth, of anger, of hope. 6 years had carved hollows beneath his eyes, threaded silver through his hair, and driven a wound so deep into his soul that no healer dared name it. He came here often, quietly, faithfully, because this was the only place where his heart still remembered how to bathe. The cemetery was his last place of worship. It held the remains of his shattered spirit. It was the only ground capable of soothing the endless longing that lived inside of him. Because this was where they said she was buried, the woman he loved. They had never allowed him to see her face before they buried her. They said the sickness came swiftly. They said the body was unclean. They said the burial could not wait. They said too many things, and he had believed them, because princes were raised to trust their blood, even when that blood betrayed them. Obinna stepped closer when he heard the boy speak again. He didn't know the boy saw him walking up to him. He never expected the shiver that ran through him when the boy's piercing eyes caught his and his mouth murmured, "Mama says you loved her more than the moon loves the night, but they were afraid of her shadow touching your crown." Obinna froze. His heart stopped beating. The ground beneath his feet seemed to soften, as though it recognized his pain. "No," he whispered hoarsely, "that is not true." But the earth did not correct the boy. Slowly the child turned. Their eyes met again, and the world tilted. The boy's gaze was steady, ancient, too knowing for someone so young. His face carried echoes Obinna had spent 6 years trying to forget. The familiar curve of a smile, the depth of a gaze, the quiet defiance of love born in poverty. There was something unmistakably regal in the way the boy stood. "You cry like her," the boy said simply. Obinna staggered as though struck. What did you say?" cry the same way Mama cries when she thinks I'm asleep," the boy replied with calm certainty. The prince's breath shattered. Who is your mother?" he asked, his voice barely holding together. The boy rose, brushed soil from his small palms and lifted his arm. He pointed towards the distant road, the one that led beyond Omochi, beyond the palace, beyond lies and graves, the road that led to the truth.